So we got Celtics Warriors, June basketball. You just can't beat it. Let's bring in Matt Meiselman, Julian Edlow as well, a couple of DK analysts for NBA best bets. Guys, we're going to take a deep look here at some player props, at series odds, whole bunch of different things here. Adam Kaufman with you, if I didn't mention that, by the way. Some props to look at on the DK Sportsbook. And Edlow, we're going to begin with you. Celtics, they were plus 140 going into this series, road underdogs in game one. We were going back and forth a little bit on Twitter earlier in the week when you were saying you didn't hate this spot, actually, for Boston to maybe jump in and surprise Golden State a little bit. But when I agreed with you, you second-guessed yourself. You have to decide now how much you do or don't hate this.
Yeah, I mean, when you're on board with my contrarian take, it definitely makes me think twice about it and consider that I might be on the wrong side. But the Celtics, I think the perception is probably that they're going to split these games in Golden State. And then the perception is probably that they'll split again in Boston because the Celtics have been much worse at home than they have on the road. And the Warriors are just a good team. But as it pertains to game one, the idea that this could be like a down spot for the Celtics seems kind of silly to me in game one of the NBA Finals with the most rest that they've gotten since between games 2 and 3 of the Bucks, which was weeks ago. The game one against Miami was a really tough spot. It was coming off a big game 7 win over the Bucks, and then you have to go right down to Miami and play. Then you factor in they're going to be without 2 starters, Marcus Smart they planned for, Al Horford by surprise. They were still up 8 at halftime of that game before the 22-2 run by Miami in the third quarter, and they ultimately dropped that game and then win game 2 in Miami in dominant fashion. I think that this is the game where you want to come in and catch the Warriors off guard. They've been off for a week. The Celtics are close to full strength. Maybe they'll be without Robert Williams, who is certainly dinged up. But the way that I'm playing this one for starters, I've put it in my best bets article on DK Playbook. Celtics plus 1.5 first half. I think they're going to get off to a really good start in this game, maybe a little bit of rust for Golden State. And then who knows if Golden State has its patented third quarter, which has been a struggle for the Celtics at home and where it goes from there. I think it's going to be a good, close game, but I think the Celtics come out and have the better start.
Well, and you basically just described what happened in game one against Miami. Celtics got off hot against the Heat, and then obviously it all went to hell in the second half there. What do you think, Meiselman? Money line bet on the C's tonight. Feel good about it?
I don't feel great about them winning. I do think there's value, but actually the thing that Julian mentioned first is kind of interesting to me, where this idea that it's not so contrarian to be on the Celtics, I think that's specific to our little DraftKings Boston bubble. And outside of that, most people like the Warriors for the series, for the game, for everything. So don't be nervous, Julian, that Kaufman is with you on this contrarian take. He's a Celtics fan. Like, we're all just going to like the Celtics. So it's still contrarian despite the fact that he's in on it. But as far as the specifics for the game, I am a little concerned about Robert Williams. And I think that there's a decent chance that he doesn't play. If he does play, I think you take the 3.5 points, you take the money line. I think the first half is a reasonable call, where if the Celtics are a little more fatigued than the Warriors, I think we see that manifest more in the second half of the game than the first half of the game. This is basically what we saw with game one against the Heat, where the Celtics were good in the first half and got tired in the second half. I think that's an overall trend to expect. When a team is more tired, it actually shows up later in the game. So first half, I think, is a reasonable call. I don't know that I'm picking the Celtics outright to win, but I think plus 140 is a value. I'm just not as excited about it if Robert Williams doesn't wind up playing.
Rob Williams with the left knee soreness. He is the only player on Boston's injury report right now. So Marcus Smart, don't worry about that sprained ankle. He's going to play. There has been some chatter about Williams maybe sitting out just to get him that full week of rest going into this series. But still, I mean, with what some of the other guys behind him have looked like, Daniel Tice in particular, you'd like more Rob if you can get it. We do know, though, he is a stellar defensive player on obviously the league's top defensive team. The Warriors, no slouches defensively either. So Julian, back to you here. 212.5. That's the number in terms of the over-under for tonight for game one. How do you feel about it, knowing that these offenses have the ability to break out, but also, again, stingy D?
Yeah, game one totals are hard because we want to see what the series looks like, right? What's the game plan going to be on both sides? So, like, personally, I'm not betting the total tonight, but I lean to the over. And I lean to the over because, obviously, we have two defensive teams here, yet and it's gone up since I've even looked at it. So apparently people agree. But Yeah, it's two, defensively efficient teams, but they're both very talented on offense. And, if Robert Williams is out, or he's definitely going to be limited if he plays, that takes away one of the best defensive weapons in the series. And I think that the Celtics half court defense is so good, and the Celtics half court defense matches up so well with the Warriors if they play slow and get into a half court, that Golden State is going to try and run and get quick shots off. And I think that whether they go in or not is going to dictate the pace to a degree, and that we see more shots earlier in this series before things, as they always do, tighten up down the stretch in bigger series. So I lean over in game one and to begin with, and these totals slowly start kind of creeping down and going under.
The interesting thing, Matt, is, you think of the Warriors and the Splash Brothers and Steph and Clay, and it's, well, they're going to be raining threes, taking a million attempts. It's actually Boston, between these two teams anyway, that is more reliant on the three, whereas the Warriors are more prone to attack the basket. And if you don't have Rob Williams out there, there could be a lot of opportunities on the inside, even though Boston is, the bigger team between the two. So how do you feel about 214?
Well, first of all, yeah, it's not a lack of homework that got you to say 212.5. This moved like in the last 10 minutes. So I don't know what's going on that caused the total to jump 1.5 this fast.
Do you think Matt, do you think no Rob Williams would be worth 1.5 to the total? Because I'm with you. I don't think he plays.
Yeah, so that's actually my concern. And it's not just him specifically. So I think in general, Rob Williams not playing will boost point scoring in the game, because I don't think the Celtics want to play Daniel Tice. I think they'll play more of Grant Williams and Derek White and go smaller. Tice looked awful last series in the minutes he did play. But the other thing that happens if Rob Williams doesn't play is that Kevon Looney also probably plays less minutes, because they don't need that matchup as much. So I think if Rob Williams is out, not only do you get a higher pace and worse defense from Boston, you also are going to get it from Golden State, where maybe they're more willing to go with their smaller lineup. Maybe they're more willing to play Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, all those guys on the court together. But the reason that I don't really have a strong take for this is I have no idea what the minutes are going to look like for the role players on either side. Obviously, we're not sure about Rob Williams, but I don't know how much Otto Porter is going to play, Andre Iguodala, Gary Payton II. Yep. There's just so much uncertainty here. So if all of those guys were playing big minutes, I would definitely like the under, but the less those defensive-oriented players are out there, the more the over will look good. So it's just very difficult to say. I think I'd probably wait for a starting lineup before betting the total for this game, because I think it could go a lot of ways based on the rotations.
Peyton Pritchard, another guy who sort of not fell out of favor, but it wasn't as useful late in that Miami series. He could see more run here against the Warriors as well. Something to think about. Player props as we continue on with NBA best bets. They're always interesting ones. Scanning them quickly here in the DK Sportsbook. You got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, 3+ 3-pointers each. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, 25 points plus each. You can look at Draymond Green, triple-double. That just scratches the surface. Again, Matt, you have a million different options here. What stands out to you?
So I'm going to take something I think that is way more boring than all of the stuff you just said, because yes, it's fun to root for these alternate point totals and alternate 3-point totals. I don't really see why there would be value on any of that. Like, to me, if anything, this game is probably going to be lower scoring than people expect. And also the prices for these alternate lines, I just never really like them that much. But there's a head-to-head line. I know this is similar to the one Julian liked, but Al Horford's rebounds versus Kevon Looney's rebounds. If we get Robert Williams not playing, Horford's got to play more 5. I really don't think Tice is going to play much in this series either way. And then Looney plays less. So the Williams either not being there or reduced minutes, I think helps Horford out-rebound Kevon Looney, who I think could lose some minutes there. And maybe everyone's taking for granted that Looney is now suddenly this very important part of the Warriors' rotation. But when they're healthy, he plays 20 to 25 minutes. I don't think we should expect 30 minutes, even with maybe Payton and Porter and Iguodala all somewhat limited. I still think Looney being out there for 3/4 of the game is kind of a ridiculous assumption. So I think Horford should out-rebound him for the series. There's props on that too. But for game one, especially if Williams isn't playing, I think Horford is the Celtics' main rebounder, and Looney probably loses a little bit.
Jules, Matt going first, meant more time for you to peruse the DK Sportsbook. What'd you find?
Yes, and while I was perusing, believe it or not, I did actually read the questions for this segment. I'm supposed to save head-to-head for next, right?
Yes, please do.
Okay, well, I'll save my head-to-head. Matt pulled a me and broke the rules and just said whatever he wanted.
We don't need to go on next.
Okay, strictly for the props. Okay, so a couple ways to go here, and I like everything that Matt's onto. I like, and I think we can kind of go that route. But so Draymond Green points wise, and this will tie into my head to head. He doesn't look to score early in series. He scores more as the series goes on and those closeout games approach, and you kind of need it more. He's not like he knows the Celtics are going to give him shots, and he's not going to take them in this game because he's going to be looking to distribute, especially if this becomes a small ball game with no Robert Williams and Derek White's on the floor and Poole gets more minutes and that's another dribble handoff guy. So like Draymond Green is not going to attempt shots. He scored 8 total points in his 2 games against the Celtics. Draymond Green under 8.5 points feels pretty good in this one. And then the other one just ties into Williams. If Rob Williams doesn't play, again, we need to see what the rotations look like. Boston might be forced into some small ball, but I still think Grant Williams gets significant run, whether he starts or not. So Grant Williams props, maybe a points or rebounds or combined over if there's no Robert Williams makes some sense.
Well, especially if you could lay it down on the series too, knowing that Rob Williams, there's just no way he's going to play in all 7 of these games. He had so much trouble playing back-to-backs. Even when the finals a little more spread out, we'll find out. But he's basically missed half this postseason so far. Let's go to those head-to-heads, Jules. Again, points, rebounds, assists. Break it down however you want. You could do Curry versus Tatum head-to-head points. You could do Wiggins and Brown rebounds, Green and Smart assists. What do you like here?
Yeah, as you said, with all of these random combinations that you've mentioned, you can bet on basically anything you want. So there's no lack of options. I'm keeping it simple. Game 1, a juicy Al Horford minus 160 to outscore Draymond Green. I laid out why Green isn't going to score, but for Horford, I'm just assuming that whether Robert Williams is out or not, he's going to be extremely limited. And that means a lot of Horford at center or just Horford on the floor. Like he's not going to sit much. He'll play 36 minutes or whatever in this game. And he's going to shoot. The paint touches against the smaller Golden State team is key, so they could make a point of going to Horford in the post a little bit where he's been productive. And then the pick and pops with Smart, Tatum, Brown. We know that Horford's going to take those threes. So I just see, like, you look at the range of outcomes here at minus 160. Obviously, you're exposing yourself to, lose a decent amount of juice. But if you lose this, what is it? Like 8 points for Green, 6 for Horford, and you lose an ugly one. That's the floor. What's the ceiling of this? Would anybody be surprised if Al Horford scores 18 points tonight and Draymond Green scores 4? Like, that's a very realistic outcome, and this bet just smashes. So I feel like even at minus 160, there's so many more ways to win this than lose it.
Matt, do you have anything you'd like to add to the head-to-heads?
Oh, of course, because I already wasted my answer, so I have to find a new one.
Yep.
I do think that there's something that's mispriced that connects a head-to-head from the series with the game. So for the series, Draymond Green is close to even money for the leader in assists, and Marcus Smart is plus 300. I like Smart a lot here, and if we need an indication as to why, for tonight's game, it's basically pick 'em between the two guys. I don't want to bet Smart over Green on an individual game at even odds, but I think that the assist leader should be a pretty even race between Smart, Curry, and Draymond. I think it could kind of go to any of those three. And I lean towards Smart a little also just to have a higher assist series in general. I think the Warriors' defensive style is a little different than Miami, where the Heat are trying to double the ball a lot and force the Celtics to, I guess, pass it around the perimeter and not have Tatum and Brown going one-on-one. And I think that that's conducive to Smart just having a better opportunity to drive and kick in this series than he did last series, where in last series, you had Tatum as more of the facilitator than we're used to seeing. And then we also had Smart playing injured last round, and he seems perfectly healthy. So maybe that's the biggest key. Like, I think Smart comes into this series with his ankle feeling better. He's not on the injury report, unlike Robert Williams. I think he's totally okay. Mm-hmm. So for the full series, plus 300 to have the most assists, like, I think he should be in the 100 somewhere, maybe 200. I think he has as good of a shot as anyone, and it's weird to me that Draymond is so far ahead of him for that.